It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for April 4th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, Hellblade 2 is sounding more promising than ever, but is there a problem with it? And some buffoon is making headlines about the return of a major Xbox franchise. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Jesse Don Cabeza Norris, returning champion. Jesse, how are you doing?
I am doing quite well. I'm on a round trip this morning. We just did our own news show. Now I'm doing this news show.
Yep.
And then I got something I can't talk about it all directly after this, but woke up to a lot of big fun news instead of, I'm waking up to a bunch of people being fired instead of just waking up to video game stuff. So it was nice.
It is, right. Yeah, it's nice. Video game news is kind of back. Seems like it's going to keep coming back too. We got some news about more showcases for the summer. That's looking pretty cool. We'll get into all of that and more. But Jesse, how have you been? You were busy there for a while, reviewing one game after another for a long time.
Yeah, it's been the first down period. I think 2023 never really had a down period, but I had a whole week without having anything to work on. That has now changed. Still nothing huge coming. Got House Flipper 2 and is coming to console next week. If you like the original House Flipper, it's been on PC for like 4 months. I can talk about that version. It's great. It's more of a game now. The other one is Ereban Shadow Legacy. That one was originally coming to Game Pass and Xbox Day 1, but they lost their publisher, Raw Fury. So now it's only PC, but I'll have that one next week. So same old, just constantly doing news to pay the bills, and then I get to do the reviews for fun.
Yeah, sounds like a good time. Do you have any plans to try to make it out to any of these Summer Game Fest events, anything like that?
We got invited to Summer Game Fest, so I am in the process of planning it out. Wouldn't have really been able to afford it except for one of our community members who's a friend. Is like, hey, I live right there. If you just want to crash at my place, so I'm going to do that. Yeah, and he works for an airline company, so he's going to get me cheaper fare. But we're doing Summer Games Fest this year, at least two of us, and the game day play days, whatever the heck they call them, going through all that for the first time. Be exciting.
It's
the big one that we're doing is myself, John, and Nick, and maybe another person or two from the team are all going to Gamescom this year because we're an international team. So John's in the UK, Nick's in Australia. He's the really freaking expensive one to get anywhere.
Right. Well, that's because Australia doesn't exist. They have to come from some other dimension.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, they got shooed off by the UK to as far away as possible. So unless they can drill straight through the earth, they can't get back quickly. But I got a passport for the first time.
Oh, really?
It was weird. Yeah. I mean, the United States is very big. I've driven 28 hours straight and not even left a single coast going from Florida to Massachusetts. So it is not really looking forward to a 15-hour nonstop flight because I'm going to bounce to the UK, hang out with John for a little while, then we'll bounce over to Cologne. But it's exciting and terrifying.
Yeah,
and I'm looking forward to it.
It'll be a good time. We'll
be out of there before all the smelly people show up.
And that's the way to do it. That's
the main thing I've heard about Gamescom. Is especially if you're from the U.S., you got to get used to body odor.
It's that European funk. Yeah. Listen, a couple things. United States. We tell our European friends the United States is very big and wear deodorant. Hell yeah, let's go.
We shower a lot too.
Shower
obsessively.
All right, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I've decided I'm going to beef with Europe. That's what we're going to do. So come at me. Tell me all the terrible things about America. I'm prepared. I'm not.
It will make me cry. Yeah, I mean, we'll be like, yeah, you're right. I know.
Let's explain.
Yeah, DeSantis. Okay, yes, good.
Most weekdays, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. That reminds me, let's switch over there. There we go. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Gears 6 news will reportedly be coming this summer. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. The first news on Gears of War 6 may be coming this summer, according to new claims. During the latest episode of the Kinda Funny XCast, host Paris Lilly made a prediction that Gears 6 news would arrive in the summer, a prediction which was then seemingly verified by the episode's guests. Giant Bomb Foon, I saw that in chat, and that was pretty good. Jeff Grubb, when they showed the Marvel, this is Paris now, when they showed the Marvel's 1943 trailer in Unreal Engine 5 during GDC, I jokingly tweeted, "Imagine what Gears 6 would look like in Unreal 5." Lily said, because it looked so good. And then somebody from the coalition made a cryptic little subtweet under me about that, which perked my ears on that. So my conspiracy theory is that you do tease it this year, and that it's probably a launch game for next gen. That seems to make sense to me. And then I was like they kept talking for a little bit. I was like, should I say it? You can actually see me on the stream going like, should I say this? It's going to be annoying when I say this, and then people kind of take it really far. But the reality is, yeah, I've heard that and I feel pretty good about it. I feel pretty decent about it. There's no guarantees in this life, as I've learned over and over. But I feel pretty good saying, yeah, I think there's a strong chance Gears 6 shows up at something like the Xbox Showcase this summer. They tease it. The game is probably pretty far away. I mean, you know what? Let's just get into it. Jesse, what do you think about this? When's the earliest that game could come out?
I don't think it's going to be super close because... Nick, he's generally pretty good at his predictions. And if they're doing a Gears collection, it would make sense to have that hit sooner and then get people, especially people on PC who maybe didn't get to play Gears 1 or 2 ever, or Gears 2 or 3 ever. 1 does have a terrible PC port. But you get the Gears collection out, that gets everyone hyped. And then a couple years later, Gears 6 hit, because we do know they didn't jump right into Gear 6 after kind of finishing up on 5 in 2020-ish when the Series X version and Hivebusters hit. They took their time. They were looking at other stuff, getting used to Unreal Engine 5, which was not close to ready. But now it is. They're probably in full production. They're also working now for a company in Xbox who is kind of just moving away from that generational thing, because every rumor, everything everyone seems to think about a potential Series S focused build portable would make it be like, well, the generations don't matter because you are going to still be making games for the Series S profile for a long time because they want to get a handheld that could only run that. They couldn't run more than that. Like all the handhelds we have that we love aren't a Series S. You can't actually get that type of power in them yet. You need to get that TDP nice and shrunk down and your efficiencies all in order. So it'll be nice to have big things hit when you have new hardware hit. But what are those big things? Like they've got like 60, 70 friggin' teams now. I know people are always like, oh, we're always waiting on things to come out. It's like, well, no, they've had a pretty steady cadence. 2022 was the year where it was too small in scope. But 2021, really good. 2023, really good for me, but I'm the idiot who likes Redfall. 150 hours in it now, by the way. It's not just making it up.
Holy moly.
We'll be streaming it tomorrow.
How is it these days?
If you wanted 60 FPS on console and for the controls to feel better on console, perfect.
Great.
They put FSR2 in. It actually kind of looks 4K. It's oddly one of the better FSR implementations in any game I've seen. There's like no shimmering or ghosting. I don't know how they did it. Because FSR2 normally was bad.
Yeah, FSR2 has some issues. Yeah. FSR1 has issues too, to be fair.
FSR3 is just FSR2 with FrameGen.
Yes,
FSR's
exactly.
got dumb naming like always. But FSR 3.1 or 2 is going to have better upscaling.
They're getting closer to DLSS. They are. Gears 6 is the kind of thing where you kind of like laid it out there, where when they were done with Gears 5, they did not immediately go into Gears 6. What I was hearing for quite some time after that was they want to get up to speed with Unreal Engine 5. And so they're going to be experimenting and making some other games that are new and smaller and more experimental. And they got 2 in the works at the very least. And I think what happened was, they helped make that Matrix demo. Mm-hmm. And they've been helping with other Unreal Engine games here and there. And so the learning curve seems to maybe have already happened. And I think that got them thinking like, okay, well, we're up to speed on Unreal Engine 5. In fact, we might be the most up to speed on Unreal Engine 5 outside of Epic. And really, in a lot of ways, we're like the key developer when it comes to taking advantage of what Unreal Engine can do, because over at Epic, they are working within the confines of like what Fortnite's going to be doing. So I think that kind of helped them when it came time to be like, hey, should we get more serious about making gears? I think that was a pretty easy gear shift. No, God, lack of a better term there.
Boy.
I did not mean that even. And so I think, they moved over to Gear 6, and they've been working on that for quite some time now. I am like hesitant to like say the date I've heard for this because it's way too early. There's no way it's coming out as fast as the date I've heard. No. And really, that's the like when I hear the date, the people that were telling me, they're like, I don't believe this either. So that's where that is. So I think I'll just hold off. We'll just can you turn up that sound there? Thank you guys.
Aww,
yeah, they're having a party. And so I think with Gear 6, I think we'll probably kind of have to wait a couple more years. But that means if they think it's coming like within the next 24 months, teasing it now does still make a lot of sense. I think.
Yeah, they're definitely in the 1 to 2 years out when they're doing teases. Because, again, they have a boatload of stuff coming. Already talked about things we now have a time frame for about indie Hellblade, among others, Towerborn, which many people are playing, but no one can talk about because it's in their NDA'd insider thing. Very pretty game. I haven't played it yet, so I can talk. I've only watched the previews that we didn't get. Because John got to play it at Gamescom, I think, if I remember correctly. But like they've got a lot of stuff. They've had a lot of stuff come. A slower period earlier in the year, kind of saved for them by Pal World going cuckoo loco.
Oh yeah, true.
Because like it's always the weird thing, and people want green PlayStation. They want that green Nintendo, and there's only one Nintendo. Who really do just sell a shit ton of first-party games to their fans. Were like, this one only did 20 million. It's not nearly as big as one that did 60.
Yep.
But like their focus, so while PlayStation's focus is just it's the system for casuals, along with having their hardcore first-party fans, the Xbox approach is very much the multi-headed Hydra. Everywhere we can get anything, and they're all just making tons of money, which is why it's always weird. People say, oh, there's no games. It's like, no, for the average person, there's way too much. And that's what we're seeing. Like, there are so many games that something like Gear 6, you can announce it, you can take your time, and they can slot. Like, they want a big game every quarter. For how many teams they have now, that's pretty easy. They had a big game this quarter, but it was Call of Duty Warzone Mobile. So, like, it's not the way we are used to thinking.
Yeah, and to be fair, like, when I was on the couch with Phil, I kind of was asking, like, hey, when you say a game a quarter, do you mean stuff that could be mobile, and do you mean stuff that could be DLC? And they're like, no, we don't. That's not what we mean when we say game a quarter. So they will have those things, but when they say game a quarter, they do mean pretty much the things that we're expecting. Not always. It will be the occasional free to play thing, or maybe a partner game here and there. But their first party typically is going to have a big what you think of as a traditional video game, and they'll get there. I think that. I do believe they can get there. The thing I'm continue to be a little bit frustrated by is I do want the unequivocal success. I want the thing that is the consensus game of the year candidate, and that's been elusive for them.
What if we take the first 2 days of Starfield's release?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
It was an 88. It was really up there.
It was really there.
Then a lot of the later reviews were very angry.
Yeah, right. But I think they need to get a game out there that doesn't have that sort of roller coaster.
In a game that doesn't have that roller coaster in a genre people will give Game of the Year to.
Exactly.
Because Flight Sim and Forza Horizon being in the 90s doesn't really matter. Ori being a 90, like even then it's a smaller Metroidvania. Like they want a Hellblade 2, which can. Just take off a bit.
And it's like, and we'll get to Hellblade 2 actually here in a couple of stories. Well, there's plenty to talk about there. But it does feel like, that's maybe the kind of game that could do it. But they're also, setting expectations a little bit lower for that. So I'm like, man, I'm so curious to see how that's going to play out. But
Lexi does make a good point in chat. How about, I still feel robbed on Pentiment.
Pentiment's definitely, God, that was in my top
Not
5,
the right genre,
probably.
though.
Right, exactly, yeah. I adore Pentiment, and it really probably was one of the best games of that year for sure.
It's one of those things. It's their focus is to just. Phil talked before. They hired people to make their dream games essentially, and not control what genre that's going to be. And a lot of that stuff can be a little more experimental. It can be a little more niche. They don't have a focus on big open world set piece action games, which tend to dominate more of the award stuff sometimes.
And and for me, it's like, I hope that Pentiment can inform what happens with like their bigger games going forward. I'd like to have some Pentiment energy in all of Obsidian stuff in the future. That would be great. All right.
I wonder what Josh is working on.
There you go.
I want to know.
Yes.
I always want to know what Josh is working on.
Yeah, it'll take a couple of years. Thanks, kiddo.
Outside of shit posting on Twitter, which he is unbelievably good at.
Top tier shit poster. Yes, absolutely. All right, let's get to this next story. Hollow Knight Silksong has been rated in South Korea. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. Hollow Knight Silksong has been classified in South Korea, suggesting news about the game's release date could be on the way. As spotted by a Reset user, Team Cherry's much-anticipated Metroidvania sequel was actually rated back in February when the game was classified as suitable for players aged 12 and over. The rating was discovered after Microsoft launched a Hollow Knight Silksong store page on Xbox this week, enabling players to wishlist the game. This was publicized on social media by Xbox President Sarah Bond, who reminded players that the title will be available on Xbox Game Pass on day one. Yeah, okay, so like when I heard this initially, I didn't realize it was that February date. So then after hearing that, it was like, okay, that puts things in a little bit different light. But what usually happens is, and this is usually not 100% of the time, something gets rated in South Korea, and then you're looking about like a month and a half to 2.5 months before it actually comes out. Now, that would put it right around now. And so the idea that this game could launch at any second feels a bit absurd, and yet, whenever you kind of talk about this game, it's like the kind of thing where maybe it does just pop back up at the Summer Game Fest or the Xbox Showcase, and it could shadow drop. I feel like it's too big for that. I feel like they would want to get the hype into that at least a couple of weeks of people being like, all right, here we go, here it comes. Let's everyone pre-order it or get ready to buy it. But at the very least, I think this thing is lining up to finally launch, and probably launching very soon, it feels like. There's no guarantee there. It could come out later this year, but it feels like it's imminent. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, you never know. Sometimes when things start hitting and you start seeing Steam databases updating and whatnot, like with Shadow of the Erdtree, it was still actually like 4 months away.
Yep.
So it could be very soon. It could be just getting prepared to announce.
Yep.
Because it was at Xbox's essentially E3 showcase last year. So if Xbox has a lot of shows, they tend to do their ID at Xbox stuff a lot. I don't know if that's going to be an ID at Xbox game. I think it's self-published, so it probably is.
Yeah, but if it's maybe in spirit though, it's like it's definitely bigger than that kind of game, right? So like people are mentioning that triple I initiative, the triple indie, which is like kind of the equivalent of like a triple A indie game is what they're trying to say there.
The 10th, I think.
Yeah, so that's coming up very soon, and people are like, hey, it could show up there. The game is like kind of too big for that. It is the kind like it's so huge that it feels like no, that's the kind of thing that could maybe not headline an Xbox showcase clearly, but it's like it would be a big headliner like of its own. It would be on the marquee somewhere if you were to say here are the 4 or 5 games that people really care about in the show. It would be one of them, and so I think if you're that big and you were trying to make a big splash at launch and a game that they spent a lot of extra time on and probably spent more money on than they intended to, they probably want to make sure that it's as big a splash as possible. So I'm not expecting that the triple I initiative, but who knows? Like it's the indie game scene is a lot of like it's networking, it's a lot of close people. Maybe the people responsible for triple I have a good relationship with that studio, and you maybe we'll show up there and bring our game there and give it some legitimacy. So yeah, it's possible. But the way I feel about it right now is like I think we're going to probably get a couple weeks from now, especially as we get into the Summer Game Fest time, and we will hear about that game before we get through the end of summer in a real way. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. That feels more June-ish, but you never know.
Yep, you never know. And then people are like, a shadow drop would pop off. I suppose it would. I guess I'm just like not sure these days. It's like I know shadow drops work really well for smaller games on the Switch. People love to watch a Nintendo Direct and then go get their Switch out and buy a fucking video game. They love that. Yeah. That is, I don't know if that necessarily translates across the board to every game, but I mean, listen, Silksong is going to be the kind of game that maybe would fit that model pretty well. All right, you can finally play the real Suika game on iOS. This is from Nicole Carpenter at Polygon. Goodbye, App Store Suika Game clones. The real thing has finally arrived on iOS for players outside of Japan. Suika Game, the watermelon puzzle game that went viral on Nintendo Switch last year, is available for download for $2.99 on Apple's App Store, making it playable on iPhone and iPad. The title for the official version is Suika Game Aladdin X, and it comes from X Gimme. Is that, I can never know how to say this studio. X Gimme Limited. Suika Game was quietly released on the App Store for players outside of Japan last month. The game was released on iOS for Japanese players in December. I only realized it was out on iOS because I'm still way too into the game and periodically check the App Store. I love Suika Game. I think it's really well made. It is one of those ones where it feels like they stumbled across something really special in terms of the way that the fruit moves against one another, and the friction and the tension of all these pieces of fruit stuck in this tube. For people that don't know, it's like you just drop fruit down from the ceiling, and the game randomly picks one of the number of fruit in there, and you've got to connect two apples, and they turn into another thing, and then you got to connect two of those, and until you get up to a watermelon, and the game keeps track of your score. It's threes with fruit, and really what makes it work is that really excellent physics engine.
Yeah, the physics is everything.
Right. And so all these clones don't get it exactly right, and it's substantially worse. So there's that Suika Game online that's it looks like it, but it doesn't feel like it, and that's actually super important. So I've played a ton of Suika Game on my Switch, really enjoy it. I don't know if it's on Android. I know they're saying on iOS. I have an Android. I'm going to check it out. But at the very least, people with iOS, hey, here you go. Here's a good time waster. Are you a Suika Game guy?
You made me buy it, and I played quite a bit of it.
Yeah. Yes.
You sold me on it. I admit it. The Switch is almost always up in the kids' room, so I haven't played too much of it. But yeah, when I played it, it was pretty darn addictive.
Yes, I haven't had as much time with it recently because the kids are constantly playing Smash Brothers now, so which is happening right now, right over there. I did see this announced, Sean. This Puzz Mix from Inti Creates. This was announced today, right? Is this is a Suika Game clone? With the it's apparently a Suika Game clone where one of their anime characters sits on the side and encourages you. So okay, what if you know what that means?
And you can mod it to not have any clothes probably.
Yeah, eventually, if it's a good game. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. When we get back, a lot more headlines, including let's talk about what's happening with Hellblade 2. Some previews came out, and more right after this. All right, we are back, and Senua's Saga Hellblade 2's combat looks beautiful and feels badass. This is from GameSpot. You should check out the preview. They have a number of previews about various features of this game. But this one stuck out to me mostly because I'm like, hey, that sounds enticing to me, someone who did not necessarily jive with Hellblade 1. About halfway through my conversation with Dom Matthews, head ninja at Ninja Theory, and Melina Juergens, lead actor for Senua and video editor at Ninja Theory, I broke. I had to ask why the format of Senua's Saga Hellblade 2's title is the inverse of the first game, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. Why is Senua the part first now? It's a small thing, sure, but I had to know if there was anything to do with it beyond the studio's secret machinations to confuse me. Juergens laughed and admitted that the change trips her up too, which made me feel a whole lot better, while Matthews surprised me with a serious answer to my otherwise silly question. We wanted to recognize the fact that the focus is on Senua, Matthews told me. It's a Senua's saga. It's Senua's story. We wanted that to be front and center. This preview goes on to talk about, hey, the combat is very interesting and has a lot more going on. It's pretty deep. And so I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty enticing to me. Of course, there's also some caveats to this. I guess we'll get into that in a second. How are you feeling about Hellblade 2 right now, especially after these previews, Jesse?
I would say confused at why so many people are surprised that it's only 30 FPS. It's very clear the game has always been entirely focused on its graphics to push the narrative further. It's gorgeous. It looks really good, and it's not a game where you're constantly moving the camera. 30 FPS is a lot harder in a dual joystick game because you're constantly moving it, and if it's jerky at all, if you've got the bad 30 FPS with poor motion smoothing, it can just feel like shit. But in light 1v1 action game with probably some puzzle solving and walking around environments. It doesn't bother me. I was actually curious if they were going to go 24.
Yeah.
Because they're doing the big ass black bars.
They're doing the filmic.
Just go full filmic. Yeah. 20 or 23.987, whatever the actual frame rate they use is. No, after reading everything, it's been funny. People kept asking on our Discord and on our forums, like, why are they not talking about this yet? And I couldn't say anything because we had actually asked, and they were like, it's a very limited preview, just a few things. You don't make this one, you're too small, essentially. And it's like, yeah, I get it.
Yep.
So excited. I quite enjoyed the first one. I beat it once. I got through it mostly again in VR, and then the VR version was literally just playing with a pad from a VR view. It was kind of stupid. But I get not remaking the whole game. But these previews it's everything I wanted. It's the thing I always want with games from devs is I want them to scope correctly. I want them to, okay, we want to make this, we're making this. And this is something we can actually make. And it's not going to take forever. It's not going to cost insane amounts of money. This is still an 8 or so hour game. This is what we do. It's a smaller, more intimate 1v1 fighting system. It's not some large, bloated open world now that has a bunch of shrubs you can't get over because you're on a very linear path. Like, it is exactly what we want to make at the highest fidelity we can. It's kind of the thing that during the Insomniac, when I heard Insomniac being like, oh, we've got to have this type of fidelity in the Wolverine when talking about Hellblade, it was like, no, you shouldn't. Your game is so much bigger in scope. Their game is very small in scope, which is the only reason they can do this. Like, I like this type of focus on something, and everything I've heard about this one just gets me more excited because it doesn't feel like the everything game. It feels like their game and what they wanted to make.
Yeah, I when I was like kind of going through some of these previews and seeing some of the reaction, I read, hey, 30 frames per second, and I just was like, yeah, that makes sense. I looked at the game. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's 30 frames per second. I don't always do that. Yeah, go ahead.
We know what the hardware is. It's a like low to mid range PC.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
They're not, consoles aren't expensive enough to keep everything at 60 FPS.
Right. That's part of it. It's like, I see this game, I know what they're going for, and I know the hardware that they're targeting. And they have the Xbox Series S as well. Now, of course, it does seem like the emphasis is on the visuals, so I bet it's GPU limited. And so, they'll be able to like tune that stuff down and probably get that thing running just fine at 30 frames per second on Xbox Series S. That's my expectations. But yeah, I expected this game to be 30 frames per second, so I was just like not all that like, oh man, up in arms. And I do get up in arms sometimes when I'm like, I wish Starfield would have ran at 60 frames per second. I played it on PC so that I could have it that way, and I was bummed out that it was 30 frames per second on console, even though I understood what was happening there. Here it's like,
even though it was the good 30, and even then it's like,
right,
if you play it there and you're only on 30, you're like, oh, this isn't too bad.
No,
and then
you
go over to PC and you're like, oh god. I forgot what I was missing. It's one of those things in your brain.
Right, and another thing in my brain is you could see it on the screen with Hellblade 2. You really can. So I think that helps to a certain extent, and it is a very cinematic game, not to like be like, 30 frames per second is more filmic, which is something that's been said before. Whatever. I think this game's going to get away 30 frames per second, no problem. And then if you really want 60 frames per second, you can get a PC.
You can use filmic.
Yes.
When you get those thick ass black bars, you know what they're going for. It's the order. They're pushing visual fidelity as much as they can to the point where they're squishing the screen so they can even get more pixels in that little smaller aspect ratio. I would say the thing that Xbox will always say is, yes, they want to have a super strong hardware for their console unit, but they still don't want to lose a ton of money on it. That's why everything they have is on PC. So if you want to push frame rate, you will have to go to PC. It doesn't matter if you're it doesn't matter who you like. If you like PlayStation, Nintendo, especially Nintendo, or Xbox, if you want to push graphics and frame rate, you got to go on PC.
Yep.
So it might be harder on Nintendo in the future.
Yeah, but the good news is, like, hey, all these games are on PC. So if you want the more powerful Xbox that exists, it is just an expensive PC. I will say, like, here's another passage from this GameSpot preview. This was most evident, kind of like talking about like the how epic it can get in the combat. This was most evident in the final moments of the preview, which saw Senua attempting to free a prisoner from a group of Vikings. Her actions sparked a prison break, engulfing the area in smoke, blood, and screams. I had to guide Senua through an onslaught of foes, some wielding traditional weapons like axes and swords, while others used torches to spew fire. Much like the first game, Senua doesn't face more than one enemy at a time, so huge battles are structured as a series of back-to-back duels. You'd think a decision like this would make combat easier, but nothing could be further from the truth. Hellblade 2 is hard. It's not as tricky to grasp as more action-oriented games, but enemies are quick to take advantage of your mistakes, parrying weak strikes and immediately counterattacking, for example, or using wide sweeping attacks that are difficult to dodge without precise timing. I'm like, that game continues to sound more like my kind of game than I was expecting. I mean,
and it's not too long, which is great for people in our position.
Yes, exactly. I mean, right. That the lower stakes of they're promising an 8 hour story. I'm like, okay, so I'll probably be able to get through it in like 6. Actually, that sounds real nice to me. So I'm gonna give this game a real shot. I'm not gonna go back to Hellblade 1 and try to like make that game work for me. I kind of know what that is. I know it's not for me.
Read a synopsis of the story and you'll be fine.
Exactly. But Hellblade 2, I'm not expecting the world from it. Honestly, if I just go into it and I'm like, that some of this stuff works better for me, I will be happy. That's where I'm setting my own expectations.
I am very curious. As someone who does a lot of reviews, Hellblade 1 was like high 70s, low 80s most of the time. I'm very curious where this one ends up. I'm guessing mid 80s.
Yeah, I'm like mid to low 80s is kind of where I'm thinking. Yes, that's where I would go. Honestly,
it'll be a huge L.
We did 90s. We did we do a Metacritic prediction, Open Critic actually prediction episode. I wonder what I thought for Hellblade 2 now. I'm like,
Open Critic is much easier because it's just one.
Yes, exactly. It's one number. Yes, that's where
Though I have no idea. People have said, "Oh, you propped up Starfield by giving it a high score," and so it's like, no, I don't count. Actually, I'm not a top critic. I actually have no idea why someone is or is not a top critic. Generally, just seems to be if they have a big company behind them.
That's a sister company. I have no idea either. It's all a secret. It's the black box.
Yeah, they're very quiet.
Yes. 1 year later, Ubisoft Forward is back for another June showcase. This is from Darren Bonthus at GameSpot. While E3 is permanently canceled, that isn't stopping Ubisoft from hosting its own dedicated live stream event in June. The company has announced that a new Ubisoft Forward live stream will be broadcasted on June 10th live from Los Angeles. Ubisoft joins Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest during the period, which will be held a few days earlier on June 7th this year. Over the last few years, June has become informally known as a not E3 month in the industry, as the trade show and satellite events would take place that month. Ubisoft isn't revealing which games will be shown at its event, but some of the titles in development at the company include Star Wars Outlaws, a Splinter Cell remake, and Assassin's Creed codenamed Red, amongst others. That Outlaws game is still scheduled to come out this year, right? I ask this every time, right? That's real?
Yeah, it's also, I think it just got rated on one ratings board too. As a massive fan, because I actually really like that Avatar game. You have to get in.
I enjoyed it too, yeah.
Once you get to the flying mount, that game just takes off and is legitimately fantastic. I hate Avatar. I hate the Avatar movies. They're gorgeous. They're so good. There's so much incredible
very good
look. I can't get into the story at all, but that story I actually really liked. Like I like that whole game.
Because you hate blue people. You can admit it. That's all right.
I'm anti-furry. You got me.
Okay. There you go. That'll do it.
You said blue people. They're blue cats.
Yeah. Well, but I think people applies to any sort of sentient being. I didn't say humans. They're not humans.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That works.
People in my heart.
Outlaws. Super excited for because I really love the Division 1, love the Division 2. Eventually, once they made it more like the Division 1, that seems to be the thing. Destiny 1, Destiny 2, not as good until it became Destiny 1. Diablo 4, becoming more like Diablo 3. Massive's just really good. Their engine is like second to none. That was it Snowball? Jesus Christ, I can't remember.
Snowdrop. I was going to say Snowblind. Yeah. I'm like, that's not that. Yes.
Snowdrop engine is insanely good. And it's that's the game. That's the first time we'll see tech from Beyond Good and Evil 2. Because when you go up to space, it's the Beyond Good and Evil 2 tech.
Yep. So Joseph Gordon-Levitt finally getting something into a video game. Let's go. I am mostly just happy that it feels like a summer game mess is coming together once again. So where does this put us? This puts us at Microsoft already confirmed. Sony, I continue to hear they're doing something in May. around the same time frame they did something last year. It could shift a couple weeks here or there, but in May they should have what is sounding like a showcase, but no promises on that. It could be a state of play still, but
right now, you said the word showcase. It's locked in everyone's mind.
And it does, to be fair, it does sound like it's going to be a showcase. I don't think that's too surprising, especially considering the timing.
The timing. And
then, Nintendo's probably got to do something. They don't have to. And then that's the worst phrase in the English language. Nintendo has to. Nintendo doesn't have to do anything. But there's a strong chance, I think, Nintendo sets up the second half of this year.
One would think it could be likely that they would have something to. Yeah.
But that's not confirmed, and there haven't been any confirmed rumors on that yet. So we have Sony, Microsoft, Ubisoft. I think we could probably expect a few of these other companies to step in, and then of course Jeff Keighley's thing, Summer Game Fest itself. That sounds good enough. Listen, I'm just glad we have a reason to go out to LA. Ubisoft last year at Summer Game Fest, they might have had, I think they had their Forward thing. This is the second year in a row. I barely remember the Forward thing, but they had an event.
It was pretty mediocre.
Right. They had an event in person, which was pretty good. They had a stage demo for Avatar. That's where I first got to play Prince of Persia, and that was like really solid. So I'm like, hey, that's a good reason to go out to LA as well. So I'm feeling pretty good about Summer Game Fest as it stands right now. How are you feeling about it?
It's nice for all the making fun of Keighley that people do for Jeff. Now that he's invited us, I love him. He's the best. I can't wait to go to LA for the first time in my life ever, and hopefully not die.
Well, you'll be fine. LA's not as scary as they make it out to be. I kind of like LA. It's a driving city, and I like to drive.
Capital of the world.
What's that?
I grew up in the car theft capital of the world for a little while.
Yeah, you'll be fine. And then come hang out for the Giant Bomb at night. We'll be doing our couch thing. We definitely talked about that, but that's really starting to come together now, people. It'll be 3 days. Might be more to announce involving that soon, but as it stands right now, expect what you always expect from Giant Bomb at night. I gotta start inviting people to that. All right, yeah. So Ubisoft Showcase, we'll probably get some. They'll do like Star Wars Outlaws, big blowout there, and then there'll probably be a handful of other things. God, I hope
Assassin's Creed
this year is really good. Yes, Assassin's Creed, of course. Yes. All right, hackers who got PS Portal to run PSP games offline helped Sony to patch out the exploit. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. The Portal is a streaming-only device which was designed to let players stream their PS5 console to the handheld via remote play so they can be played away from the TV. As such, the stock version of the hardware offers no options to save physical games, offering streaming functionality and nothing else. However, in February, Google Cloud vulnerability researcher Andy Nguyen revealed that he and a small team of other Google engineers had managed to hack the device to play games locally, running a PSP emulator natively offline. On Monday, the PlayStation Portal received a new firmware update to version 2.06, and Nguyen later confirmed on Twitter that it contained a fix for the hack, one his team had helped Sony to identify. We responsibly reported the issues to PlayStation, Nguyen wrote. Bugs are fixed as of 2.06. Yeah, I mean, listen, you work for Google, you're not allowed to not do this. If you discover, you kind of have to, because you don't want to be putting your parent company at risk of a lawsuit or something, which probably wouldn't happen. But this is the kind of the ethical thing, I think, in most of these cases, or at least as far as these companies are concerned. Stinks, because that device would be way better if you could play PSP games locally on it. That seems like an awesome thing.
Imagine if you could even do their own cloud service on it. How cool would that be?
That would be, well, let's not get crazy, Jesse. That's
it is crazy. It is crazy how locked down the PS5 cloud still is. It's only in certain areas for certain games on a PS5, and that is it. So it's like, it looks better than xCloud. And it's like, yeah, it does. It looks really nice. It's just really so friggin', it's so limited.
Yeah, I don't fully understand their strategy there. It does always feel like an afterthought.
Scale thing.
Yeah, scale for sure.
If they've sold a decent amount of these, maybe, well, because these are just, you're going to your PlayStation 5 directly. So, but if it also became, well, your PlayStation 5 and these portals can all go to the cloud, maybe they run out of, because the server space is the real expensive part. That, like Xbox, I think during the FTC trial, Sarabon's like, yeah, we lose money every time someone uses our cloud service. It's like, they want to keep their prices down as badly as they can. It's in the beta phase, so even though it's really good when you use it, it is also real limited for a reason.
Yeah. And hey, Steam Deck OLED is better for this than the PlayStation Portal, which is decent. I have nothing against the PlayStation Portal, but my Steam Deck OLED can stream these games in HDR, and it looks fantastic. And there's very little degradation in the signal, especially if you're using the Wi-Fi 6E, if you're using the 6 gigahertz connection, which I'm lucky enough to have. So that does make a huge difference. I know Sean was talking about how he always does notice something when it's streaming and he can see it. I'm not quite as bad as him. I'm not quite as sensitive to him as that, but I've been sensitive to that in the past. The 6 gigahertz signal does seem to deal with a lot of those, at least as far as my eyes are concerned. And so it's like, man, this just looks straight up like I'm playing on the TV. And in a lot of ways, looks better because the screen on the Steam Deck OLED is so damn good. And of course, the speakers are good. It's a real solid way to play games on that device. So I was streaming some Stellar Blade to that over the weekend, and that was pretty good. That game's pretty fun, Jesse. Stellar Blade. I've been pretty into
good
it.
Things.
Yep, I think it's I think as long as the boss fights stay interesting, that game's going to have a pretty decent chance at winning.
Yeah, that was a big thing with Liza P. It could feel grindy on the little guys, but then you get to a boss and be like, I've reset. Now I'm back into it.
Yep.
It is funny with Wi-Fi 6 and 6E taking off and finally getting home adoption, and now Wi-Fi 7 comes and everyone's like, oh yeah, this is way better.
Yep.
Like, God damn it, every time.
Every time. But I mean, honestly, that just means 6E gets more affordable, and it was very exciting when I got like my third or fourth 6E device, and I'm like, man, look at this. All these devices connected to the 6 gigahertz signal.
I'm on a T-Mobile home internet right now and just using their modem router combo, and it is 6E. And that's streaming to the Quest 3 for Steam to play like Half-Life Alyx and stuff. It is perfect.
Do you still have the home internet connection wired for like gaming, or do you game over the T-Mobile connection?
T-Mobile's all I have right now because we're in an HOA. So I'm thankfully I'm in a big city. If I go down the street, it's 1,100 down and 150 up.
Yeah, but like even with a good strong connection, like I'm worried about the ping.
Is 9. My ping is 9.
Yeah, let's go.
I don't know how.
Okay.
So I average at my house like 500 to 600 down and anywhere from 15 to 35 up, and it's friggin' cellular. But the jitter really low, the ping really low. I don't know how they do it. They start up the signal aggregation, so it's using 5G and 4G at the same time, so you get the really stable 4G upload.
That's smart.
I think that helps a lot. Yeah, they're good. It's $50 flat, no taxes, anything. Just $50 a month unlimited.
I did just upgrade my T-Mobile account for my phone, so I could take advantage of the actual 5G. I was on like a grandfathered plan from forever ago, and they finally got me to get off that, so I could get the real 5G. And I'm because I at my home I have like the UC, the ultra capacity. I think that's like the real 5G. And so I want to take advantage of that, and I want to see what that's like because
their UC can hit insane speeds.
Right, yeah, and I'm like my Comcast, where like listen, my download is great. It's anywhere from 500 to 800 on what is I think they advertise as their 1 terabyte down plan. Whatever, I don't know the difference between 500 and 800.
Terabyte would be a lot.
Or terabit, yes. Or gigabit, excuse me, yes. Yeah, it was but. I uploaded on the not real 5G on T-Mobile, and it was like 150 up, and I'm getting 40 up on my wired connection, and it's like, man, that's such a like
if you're in a
artificial
decent spot
limiting.
For them, their upload is really good. The problem with Comcast a lot of times is it's fiber on the road and then copper to your house.
Yeah. So
you'll get the really good down. You do not get the really good up because it's expensive to run fiber everywhere, and they're cheap. So.
Yeah, they are cheap, that's for sure. All right, last story here. Tekken Boss says younger players prefer team games so they could shift responsibility if they lose. Harada coming after y'all. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. Tekken series producer Katsuhiro Harada has claimed younger players are more interested in team-based games than one-on-one fighting games because it gives them less responsibility if they lose. In the latest edition of the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences Game Maker's Notebook podcast, which is a great podcast, by the way, Harada discussed with PlayStation's Shuhei Yoshida about the Tekken series. At one point, Yoshida asked Harada for his opinion on how the one-on-one fighting game can evolve in the future. Harada replied that the genre will have to find ways to integrate more team-based competition because that's what younger generation of players tend to favor. I think this is a little unfair mostly because I'm like, I tend to favor team-based things too because of the same reason where it's nice to play a competitive game and just be like, I can focus on one aspect of this instead of having like in a fighting game where it's like, no, you need to have a comprehensive understanding of everything this character can do and everything any of your opponents can do. And that is a long process and it's appealing. If I had unlimited time, I would really like that, but I can get a taste of that by hopping into an online multiplayer team-based game where it's like I could just serve one function or I can let a teammate tell me what to do or something like that. And then if we're out there competing, I still get those good feelings. And I think what's happened is people who would not want to be under the pressure of a one-on-one, fighting game scenario are more likely to play multiplayer games because of these team-based games. And it's not that they're younger or older. It's just there's more of those games now. So more people are coming into that space. And then you look at them and be like, oh, they don't want to play fighting games because they've been coddled. And it's like, no, they never would have done that in the first place. They just have these games available to them now. So they are playing online in a way they just wouldn't have if it was just one-on-one. So I don't think Harada's like incorrect here. I don't think it's a generation thing. Not really.
No, it's very much as people get older, they always look at the next generation or two coming in and say they're weaker than my generation. That's been going on for the entirety of human history.
What are you talking
Human
about?
history, the longest we've been able to write down words, we've been looking at the new gen and saying they suck. And then the new gen looks at the old gen and say, oh, they suck. And then when they get older, like in my day, it was better. And it's like,
yeah. When I was, we used to eat the lead paint and put hair on our ass.
I was going to make a joke about ancient Greece and how there was a shift in what was deemed to be an appropriate partner for sexual activities. And the new gen versus the old gen had very weird ideas that we would look weird at. But you can just find in every society throughout all of history, it's just nostalgia, rose-tinted glasses for your generation when you get older, pretty much, and overgeneralization in all the time.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where I think it's very easy just to do the us versus them in-group versus out-group thing, and that just naturally happens with one generation to
everything
the next.
Is a list war.
Yes.
Everything.
Everything.
Politics,
yes.
Religion, sports, video games, anything always becomes A versus B, sometimes A versus B versus C, but there's always my list and your list, and this is why I win.
Yep. And with that said, Tekken 8 rules, man. What a good game. Mm-hmm. Tekken 8 was so much fun.
You can kind of see it right there.
Yeah.
Look, they sent me the collector's edition. I was very happy. They're very nice at Bandai Namco.
I got mine.
Yeah.
I've been planning to give it away. I'll figure this out eventually, everybody. I don't know how. I meant to mention this on
I would give mine away, but the friggin' wing doesn't light up anymore. I don't know why.
I have no idea if this wing's going to light up. I meant to give this away during the stream where we played Tekken 8. That would have been too smart.
The time.
That would have been way too smart. I'm going to blame Sean for not reminding me, even though I don't think I ever told him to remind me. Still his fault.
That's what producers are for, to be yelled at.
Get your shit together, Sean. Jesus.
God damn.
All right. You know what? We have just one extra minute, and I saw earlier someone said they wanted to ask a question. Nylock and anyone else in chat, if you want to hit the ask a question button, I will answer questions here for about 2 minutes. You got your one chance here, at least for the time being, and then we'll get into the poll question and all that stuff. I'm looking at the question button now. There we go. What is Firaxis working on? Well, I mean, Firaxis is certainly working on Civilization 7, right? I mean, that's the big thing.
Would make sense.
And that feels like that is coming soon. I bet we get to like this summer and we hear about Civilization 7. Now, I don't know that. That's just my...
Too late.
Yeah.
Been lost.
That's my guess. I that feels like where we're at. And then it's like, what else are they working on? My guess there would be after what happened with... Because the Marvel Midnight Suns was them, right? That was Firaxis.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
My guess would be after that game was kind of fizzled on them, that they probably pulled back in terms of like, hey, all these other projects that aren't Civilization, I bet they're like, let's just focus really hard on making sure Civilization 7 has a really strong launch. I bet everyone is mostly working on that. And if they were to do something else after that, they probably would return to XCOM or something safe. I don't know. But yeah, it feels like all hands on deck for Civ 7 right now. Because that's, as big as Grand Theft Auto is for Take-Two, Civilization is a massive franchise for that company and has always made them a ton of money. And every entry has made them more money than the last. Those Civ games are continuously some of the most played games on Steam. So that's very important to them. So yeah, Civ 7.
When we're in an era of safe bets. So
yes, we definitely are. From Big Man Finelli, any Capcom rumors? Curious what's next for them now that Dogma 2 is out. Yeah, it feels like the world's their oyster. It feels like they could do whatever they want. Clearly they've got the Resident Evil cycle happening, and they got the Monster Hunter cycle happening, and those will continue just as you would expect. I think that the team that's working on Dragon's Dogma will probably flip back and forth between Devil May Cry and Dragon's Dogma for the next 10 years or so. Maybe they'll mix in something else into there, but it seems like that's the direction they would head. I bet they do another Devil May Cry next, though. But yeah, in terms of rumors, I nothing really. God, we got past that Capcom hack from a couple years ago, and now we're on the other side of that for the most part. So anything could happen. I don't know. Do you have any expectations for Capcom, Jesse?
Well, their next thing's Kinitsugami, Path of the Goddess, smaller thing.
Yes.
So getting a date on that, hopefully in June, because they'll do stuff in June, but also it's a Game Pass game. So if they date it, I wouldn't be surprised. Date it at the Xbox showcase and then show off more on their own thing during the week. Outside of that, next things seem to be Monster Hunter World 2.
Yes.
And then Resident Evil 9, most likely. Outside of that, they always seem to have little things going in the works, like their Exoprimals and their Paths of the Goddesses.
Yeah,
so
their company can still take chances. Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. Final one here from Always Be Clothing. I'll point this to you, Jesse. Would you say Baba Yetu, tell me if you're familiar with that or not, deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore of video game music over The Legend of Zelda? It's a tough one. Oh, you son of a bitch.
It's close, but no.
Baba Yetu is
just for
we definitely put that on there.
The memorable tune that so many know, not better, just more memorable.
Right. The problem is that when you start doing the Mount Rushmore of video game music, you could easily do like 3 Koji Kondo tracks very easily. So like you're going to put Super Mario Brothers music on there because that's like defining. That is George Washington to me. And then you go like, okay, there's 3 spots left. Are we really going to do another Koji Kondo? And you could, but Baba Yetu, Grammy Award winning Baba Yetu. Listen, if you're listening to me, like, what is he even talking about? Baba Yetu, spelled like it sounds. Go listen to it. It's the theme, opening theme for Civilization 4, and it rules.
Yeah.
The lyrics
really
are the
close.
Lord's Prayer. They're like Zimbabwean.
I know.
All right.
If I sing them, I'll burst into flame.
Yeah, that's right. All right, we got a poll question from yesterday. I'll get to that right now while I get that set up, Jesse.
Jeff.
Yeah, well, I'll give the audience the poll here in a second. While I'm getting that set up, Jesse, why don't you tell people where they can find you, what you have going on, all that good stuff.
Well, it is xboxera.com. You can find all our stuff right there. We're a legit press site in the minds of enough PR companies now that I'll call us press, not journalists. Not at all.
Media.
But gaming press. Don't yell at me over the Starfield to PlayStation 5 story. That was John. Outside of that, we've got a...
I got yelled about that today. That was fun. Someone was like, "Oh, you said this." I'm like, "I didn't. That was John."
Oh. Yeah, he used the wrong word. He used plan when he should have used discussion or considering. And considering, part of considering is having a plan on how you would do it if you decide to do it.
Yep.
But outside of that, it's just xboxera.com, youtube.com/xboxera. We do headlines every Tuesday and Thursday where we just break down some news. We have the podcast every Saturday. We have Abubakar Salim from Sturgeon Studios on as a guest live this weekend to talk about Tales of Kanzera Zao, which is coming out later in the month, and I'll be reviewing. Yeah, coming to PlayStation Plus Day 1, which is really nice for them. So yeah, well, Xbox era. We focus on Xbox. We end up covering everything, especially because Nick loves Nintendo so much.
All right, poll question. If you played the Stellar Blade demo, did you like it? 61% said yes, 39% said no. That's a pretty decent.
Yeah.
I think, that's a game that is either going to be for you or not in a lot of ways. And I think if you come at it and you have a certain expectation for the way the combat's going to work.
Are you an ass man?
Yeah, if you're an ass man, right? Man, the butt cheeks on that lady sway like a pendulum. It's really wild. Some really interesting bodily physics. And then, of course, she's got an outfit with the vagina heart on it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing more of that game just to see if it can maintain the high quality boss fights, because I enjoyed that. All right, let's see here. I have a new poll question for tomorrow. Are you getting excited for the summer game mess? Your options are yes, I'm already excited. The second one is I'll get excited when Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo have all confirmed shows. And no, E3 is dead. Those are your options. We'll discuss that on Game Mess Mornings on Giant Bomb tomorrow. Speaking of Giant Bomb, later today is Voicemail Dump Truck. I don't know if we'll stream anything before then. It's been kind of a busy week. So maybe we'll see if we can fit something in, but no promises. But Voicemail Dump Truck will happen later. I'll be set up for that. Tune in. Should be a good time. Tomorrow we will have another Game Mess Mornings in the morning, of course. And then we'll have UPF where we're playing Content Warning. I'm very much looking forward to that. That's the very exciting note. That game's
very smart of them to make that free.
Yes, just a really good move. And then we'll have a BCR in the afternoon after that. So tune in for all of that here on GiantBomb.com. Thank you for listening, everybody. Jesse, thank you for hanging out with me today and talking about video games. I really appreciate it.
It is always fun to be here. Thank you for having me.
And then thank you all. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.